Ryan Gilbert, PHORGE.co.nz. How would I love to live? Today I had a sit down with Ryan Gilbert, former New Zealand Army soldier and creator of PHORGE.co.nz and Kiwi Lines Retreat in the South Island of New Zealand. Ryan developed these facilities for both himself and to help others learn the benefits of cold water immersion therapy and breath work in order to teach and train people in stress management. This formed his purpose in life after the identity change of leaving the military, and has also helped him overcome his own physical injuries and achieve better mental health. Working with my friend Dion Jensen of the Lion Academy has helped Ryan take this from an idea into the business realm, and I am honored to have interviewed him at the genesis of Forge Training and watch their success. You can find Ryan at forge.co.nz and on Insta at Forge Training. Hi, I'm Damien Porter, former Special Forces operator, high performance living coach from eatwellmovewell.net, and you're listening to my Straight to What Mind and Muscle podcast. Subscribe for more amazing tips, interviews, and wisdom from phenomenal guests, and get your free copy of my 5-day meal plan and exercise ebook at realketonesaustralia.com. This show is sponsored by realketonesaustralia.com, the best and most effective ketone supplement on the market to reduce anxiety, enhance brain performance, and supply twice as much energy as glucose. You can find all my former shows on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Google, Amazon, and Libsyn. Thanks for watching and listening. And we're live. Awesome. I hit record. I've actually almost world famous for failing to do that twice. So welcome to the Straight to What Mind and Muscle podcast. Ryan Gilbert, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Damien.
Look, you run forge.co.nz, and when we say Forge, I mean PH. So given that, I'm going to throw you right in the deep end. What is Forge, Ryan, and why did you start it, and what do you guys do?
So I started Forge back in 2018 when I was really looking for a purpose for myself. So I really wanted to train. So especially after spending the time I spent over at the time 10 years in the military, I just missed teaching and training, and I wanted to be able to get out there and take people into the outdoors and just teach them how to be comfortable out there. So getting out into doing outdoor type adventure training. But also wanted to teach a lot of the skills that also incorporate with that, especially to do with stress management. I want to show people how to be able to get outdoors and actually, just move towards a state of actually getting yourself into a calmer state and allowing yourself to just physiologically take all that in. And the cold water therapy part of the training I do, it was something I found had just massive impacts on the individuals and the people I started taking through it. Of course, I'd been practicing it myself for over a year, just getting out and doing it. And the more I started doing it, the more people were interested in it and saying, whoa, what are you doing? You're going into Lake Tekapo, it's -2, and you're going to get hypothermia. It's like, no, that's not how the body works. And just investing all my knowledge and my interest into learning about this and about especially ways to interface the brain and ways to especially having gone through periods of really heavy anxiety and depression, and just kind of getting my head around that and figuring out what's going on within me, but just to look at that as ways of it's all exploration, and there are a lot of skills and practices which of course are just going to really help boost you from the inside and help you get into that creative state and space. And I really love to be able to teach it and show to people, hey, that I've been into a lot of experiences learning about breath work and having some different experiences there, and just extrapolating the knowledge from that of saying, it's not about philosophy to me or religion or any of those. That's all poetic. The actual tangible skills and things like just manipulating your breath and you are able to. Absolutely.
Yeah. Look, and I love how you started with that, and I've really thrown you in the deep end, which is ironic because I just came off a podcast about adversity, that actually the gift of adversity. But I love that you start off like that, because that sounds very esoteric. It sounds, as you said, a little bit of philosophical when you said it about stress management and so on. But
Yeah.
your background, as you and I know, is very real. So I'm just going to do it for the listener and the viewer. You know, you had 15 years with the Royal New Zealand Infantry Regiment, or
Yep.
easier language for people that there is the Royal New Zealand Army, and you deployed on multiple operational tours. So you've got a 15-year career in the military, allowing you to then transfer those skills and experience to those things that you started with. Started speaking about, you know, stress management, cold water therapy, taking people outdoors, and is that your purpose? Is that your direction now, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. And it, especially looking at the military career, and for myself, I came out of it. I was very fortunate to walk out with the injuries and just all the crazy stuff that happens over that kind of career, and deploying to Afghanistan twice and East Timor, and just 10 years of rigorous, solid training of running around, all those infantry things. You've fallen off cliffs, and you know, you've got damaged hips, knees, or shoulders, or one of them, and coming out the other side of the military, and just thinking, well, I have to look after myself now. I have to maintain myself, and I want to get stronger. And, you know, thinking at the time, I was like, I was 27, and to think I've been through a lot of things, and every soldier does. And just to think, well, I need to take the leadership on my own health and wellness, and just invest myself as best as possible, and just learn to understand my body. And yeah, really, like in looking at all the different sources of knowledge, I guess. You can certainly look at all those esoteric things and things in the really old books, and things to do with, you know, Buddhist texts and that, and it's all great. And being able to look at all of the modern technology and all of the science and everything that's coming out, that's and you know, especially considering COVID, like the times that we're in, people are more interested in their health now more than ever, even if they are just, you know, really afraid of what's going on. But to look at it and think, well, how do I boost my body and my immune system,
Right,
and really keep myself really healthy and positive and growing, and just looking at the things that would achieve the best results for myself. And
so
yeah.
the other thing you did after looking at your website, you've gone off the grid.
Yep.
Why did you do that?
I went off the grid because when I left the army, I was in a relationship that wasn't really great. It wasn't great at all. And at the time, I'd realized that because all my family's in Wellington, up in the North Island,
Yeah.
and I'd left the army, which was my whānau, that was my army family, and I was by myself again. I was like, well, I've got nothing. And to actually have that feeling of like, well, I have the ability to sort something out. So I purchased a block of land, about 5 acres, 3 acres of it's Oregon pine forest. So that's where I've built my place into here, Kiwi Lines, as a retreat space in a training area, to be able to go out there and actually use the forest and be able to set up and get in there. But the off grid was really just looking at, well, what do I want? How would I love to live, really? And you know, a smaller space that I can maintain. I built the whole thing myself. The skills involved, such as building and using tools and carpentry and all that, that was all tools. So all the knowledge is there, and all the people who would love to help you are there. And being able to do it like that and build it so it's you know, I can maintain it all myself. It's all safe, and it's all especially things to do with electricity. And you know, we're inside the shipping container house and now, and you can certainly make a comfortable spot. And looking at especially ways to, I guess, just invest your money, or you know, investing in a place to live in, somewhere that's going to be comfortable for you and last years, and be able to, you know, it's just been a really fun project. Yeah.
So what a great answer. You know, how would I love to live? And you've created that space, and not only created that space, you've given yourself the opportunity to create your purpose, which is clearly teaching and training. That's really really interesting, because I was off the grid, a very throwaway term, kind of like stress management, a very throwaway term. So I wanted to find out what that really meant. So you left that place, you've gone to living off the grid, you've built your house there, and you got those 5 acres. Is that when you then went to move on to creating PHORGE and creating this teaching and training environment?
Well, yeah, I'd really had started them both about the same time, because I'd started living out here. I just put a shipping container on the land, just a steel box, and I was living in that in just the steel box. And I'd get home every night, and I'm like, cool, I've got my dirt bike and my pack and all my stuff here. But it was like, I really just want to put my time into just really just pruning and clearing out the forest, as well as building the home. So at the same time with Forge, it was I was working a full-time job in Timaru at the time as a teaching fire safety and rescue and things like that.
Fire safety.
Yeah, so I was teaching emergency rescue teams at a lot of the factories, the Fonterra milk factories and the meatworks factories, as well as, excuse me, the fishing boats, and that was for a commercial training company in Timaru, and training a few fire and emergency staff, all kinds of stuff like that. So I was really doing it as the side hustle, and this was looking at it like, how can I invest my time and just maximize the amount of hours in the day, but while balancing myself and my own nutrition and being able to, all these things like adding into my routine, cold water swimming, even just doing it at least once a week, especially when my body was sore. And I still do, especially when my body's sore after a hard workout. I go down to the river in that freezing water, sitting there for maybe 15, 20 minutes of breath work, and then getting in that water for 10 minutes maybe, and getting out and just feeling like 100% charged up, no soreness, and just like, okay, I can continue and go off and do, I can spend a couple of hours with the business and trying to figure out things like Facebook and Instagram and like and podcast and all these cool things that there's so much interesting there. So I'd like to learn how to do it all, and getting off grid in that sense as well, of really just taking the onus of learning back onto me again, of like, what do I need, what kind of skills and what kind of things do I want to learn to really help me get build something purposeful.
It's interesting how Kiwis do it. They're so independent, I think is the word. Interviewed Jordan Fitzgerald from Warfighter Athletic. He literally came into commandos after I left, so he's literally 10 years after. But when he left the military, literally, I remember the video, he punching into Google, how do I build a website? And from zero knowledge, like, I'm assuming you weren't a builder, how do you build a house?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, that Kiwi ingenuity is brilliant. So what sort of people come along to Forge, and how did it really kick off that first training cohort you had to where it is now?
So the kind of people that have come to me have been either looking at heard a lot about cold water therapy and know someone who's done it and been like, that they feel amazing, or they've now all their arthritis is gone, or they just feel like they're energized and they're up and moving again. That, and certainly I had a group approach me in 2020 who were the survivors of the March 15 shooting massacre in Christchurch.
Wow.
Yeah, the Muslim community there, and their community were just a woman, Deborah Lemon, amazing woman who runs a trust called Navigate Your Way, and she's Muslim herself and within that community. And she was just heard about it, and she said, "Hey, would you be keen to take a few members of the community for one of your cold water swims?" This was for a public swim I just had in Christchurch.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And it was a really cool thing for everyone to be able to go through. And I worked with a lot of them individually, some of the survivors individually. Some had been shot and things like that. And for them to get out of the water and see them just completely energized and stretching and running around and moving and doing all this stuff, and just getting into going through that process of just creating some real physiological, chemical and thought pattern change, and something that, you don't have to, it's to look at, the hardest part of it for some people, the craziest thing they've ever done is go into freezing water like that.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to think, hey, you stepped up and you came out here and you want to do it. And I love spending my time with people like that who, who just want to go out and, be challenged. And yeah.
That's amazing. That's, wow, wasn't that a tough thing, the shooting? I'll never forget I think back to my parents' times. They knew where they were when they heard about JFK.
Mm,
I was literally messaging another special forces guy in New Zealand, and he said, "I've just heard
mm,
9 people have been shot," and like it was literally as it was happening,
yeah.
and we were hearing things from guys there. But what a great positive um, step forward for them to realize where they're at and then to seek out things like what you do. Um, I guess thinking about where we're going here, cold water therapy seems to be a lot of where you're at.
Mm,
I interviewed Dan Pronk. I mean, what I titled that one, 3 bags of ice in a bath makes you happy.
yeah.
And it wasn't a throwaway title, literally. Happiness being the absence of depression and absence of that black dog and all those other things that
Mm.
veterans go through. You know, what can you tell us about how cold water therapy works, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that it's a question I get a lot, and it's really cool because um, there's something in it for everyone. That's there's something different in it for everyone. I mean, when you start talking to people about the effects it has on inflammation in the body, all throughout the body, of it's getting into the water, cold water like that. Um, it's just the immediate effect of that. It's like just the ice pack effect. And when you've been practicing breath work and you are prepared to get into that water, you're not really worried about, well, you're not going to go from into a panic state because you're already warmed up and you've already got yourself in the present, and you've spent the time going through the breathing cycles and getting your heart and everything else into rhythm and getting your oxygen into your blood, and you're starting to feel it move around your body, especially up into your mind, up into your brain. And to be able to go into the cold water and just be able, there are people I've taken through it who were terrified before we started, and when they were in the water they were just complete poker face, just chilling out and just going, well, okay, I see what you mean now. It's like it's a really good moment to be able to have that, and just as well as burning fat. As soon as I mentioned that, a lot of people go, oh, maybe I should give that a go, because it's something, it's, well, you're getting a whole thermogenic process going. You're burning off the fat on your body to produce heat. Like your body's uses an enormous amount of energy to generate that extra heat, because as soon as you've got that cold water on your ribs, those intercostal spaces, your body automatically signals things that are going on through your glands, and get a whole lot of things going with all your glands all around, and all around your body, that are going to be, getting the body used to doing its thing. And I say to people, like, humans have been doing this for tens of thousands of years. But you think about peoples and Polynesian peoples and Viking peoples crossing the sea and all this kind, when it's just those cold conditions, it's like, well, you were exposed to cold more, and it's good for you because it keeps that all of the process going a lot more. And yeah.
Can I pause your explanation of cold water therapy there and ask the question? And I know the studies. There's a difference between cold water immersion, which is surrounded by water, and even the weight of that, and these cryo chambers, isn't there?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I haven't had anything. I haven't tried a cryo chamber. I'd love to. I think they go to much lower temperatures.
Yeah, so what I saw was all the studies on the positive effects of cold water immersion.
Mm.
It's literally those 3 words, and none of those effects were shown ever in a cryotherapy chamber for 2 minutes. I've been in a couple, and you get an adrenaline hit for sure, but I just wanted to maybe educate the listeners on cold water immersion is not going in a cryotherapy chamber for 2 minutes. It's very, very different. And the reason it caught my my train of thought there was because you're talking about that cold and weight around the intercostal space causing that physiological chain reaction.
Yeah, and that's why I like taking people out and doing it in places like really nice, clean lakes and rivers, because especially if it's moving water and it's a river, like it's only going to cool things down. It's like that fire hose effect if you're just taking the heat out. So getting into rivers that are really cold, it's that you're immersing yourself in it, especially the areas in your body which are going to, you're going to have that contact with the cold water, and Yeah, I like to get in there and sit and just get to myself into more of a comfortable state, and then dunk my head in and have a bit of a swim around and really just get everything moving around again. And I call it, I still call it the therapy part, because it's something the more I do it, the better I feel, and the more energy and the more kind of, the more I really feel from it. So, yeah.
So what does it do mentally? Could you expand upon that?
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I consistently and keep going back to it, and still keep going back to it, is because it's a part of my discipline, my mental discipline. It's a hard thing to do, especially when for all the multitude of reasons of excuses for oh no, it's it's too windy, or it might be too cold. It's like all the excuses run through my head. So it's a good mental check for myself when I'm trying to talk myself out of doing something hard, and I'm able to just be able to try a process that I really just move into it and trust. And even going into the water, all the way walking up, and the whole time I'm like, why do you do this? This is terrible. This is, and I like to be able to do it and be able to get out of there and feel like an absolute beast, because I've gone through there, and it's a process of really just observing all of these animalistic and all the deeper programming that we have as humans from all of our experiences, which keep telling us, why you shouldn't do that, why you can't do that. Whereas it's something that's, for all of the benefits of it, it's worth a little bit of mental, just back and forth with yourself, and saying, I can absolutely do this, and my body is absolutely going to get me through this. It's a process of, just tuning the awareness and focus as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I've done, unfortunately, I live in Perth now, which is about as hot as the sun.
Yeah, I bet.
It takes 3 bags of ice and a bath to get some cold water immersion in summer. But yeah, I tried it after interviewing Dan Pronk, and I urge people to go back and listen to that show. Really interesting guy. But if I'm a facts guy. I'm a crayon guy as well, Ryan, because you talked about esoteric and other things, but really bringing it back to the physiological logic. First off, systemic inflammation, I felt brilliant. Nothing hurt as much as it did before. I thought, okay, there's got to be something to that. But then, literally, I couldn't let other thoughts come into my head, because they couldn't get in here, because I was thinking about one thing, which is meditation. Meditation is defined as the absence of any other thoughts. I was thinking about just get through this coldness right now. So it switched off all that noise in the brain, and I didn't have to learn to meditate like a yogi. It was really interesting going through it.
Yeah. That's why I've been down to the river and into the lakeside in a horrific state, in a state of feeling depressed or just absolutely bad, physically in pain. I've got some hip injuries and things like that. And the intensity of that cold, and it's an overwhelming force that like you said it beautifully, like that. It's a huge, enormous thing, and you're not worrying about what happened to you 5 years ago. So you are in that water and you're present there, and to be able to, I think has enormous effects. And
the last thing I'd like to cover off with cold water therapy, and because you mentioned breathing, is what you do with breath work. Is that the Wim Hof mentality, techniques, or is it something you developed? Where's the breath work fit in there?
Well, it's the way I've built these courses and things to work, and just the way that I've practiced breathwork myself, has been looking at it as a wide range, covering all of the different, the aspects of affecting the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system, of using the Wim Hof method and that breathing technique of 30 breaths, and there's a period of exhalation and holding, and then there's a period of inhalation and squeezing and actually pushing that energy. Absolutely, in preparation for going into that kind of cold water, or where I really just need to power myself up and actually get my adrenaline system activated. And I'll do it before a workout if I need to do it, but I won't stay in that state. I will switch back to nasal breathing, because that has so much more of those it's sending that oxygen and that energy like straight down into your guts. And because when you're breathing deeper like that through your diaphragm, you're breathing deeper down into your lower lungs. the more you're doing that, the more you're signaling all of your parasympathetic system of saying, hey, it's, we're getting the oxygen that we need, and it's starting to stimulate in that way as well. So being able to, in breathwork sessions, just be conscious about what state you want to be in and which direction you want to go with it, and to be able to, and when people say, oh, how do I practice breathwork? It's like, you're already doing it. If you're paying attention consciously to your breath and how it's inhaling and how it's moving, and if you catch yourself out when you're stressed in a stressful state, or you're angry about something, you probably notice that you're not breathing. Probably, things to do with posture, and just this whole awareness of just paying attention to your breath, and where you want to add stimulus to create certain effects, you can. And it can be as quick as 6, 7, 8 breaths, and you're into a more regulated state, and you're a bit more, and that was one that's especially when you start talking about shooting and practices where you need those fine motor skills for high energy sports or whatever you're into, and for just really be able to feel into yourself and not hurt yourself as well. It's been really good.
You talked about parasympathetic and sympathetic, and just for the listeners that don't know what those fancy words mean, you the fight or flight system, that's your sympathetic nervous system, and the reverse of that. There's different words now: rest, digest, rest, relax, rest, repair. But the reverse of that, you said you could change it as little as 7, 8 breaths. I'll never forget, listen to Jason Fox and Oli Ollerton. They're on a chopper, special forces guys in Afghanistan, going to combat there, and literally they're just sitting there doing box breathing, which is a form of breath work, on the helicopter. Listen to Mark Devine, Navy SEAL commander, utilizing box breathing and breath work for their Navy SEAL selection, and us decreasing the dropout rate. Because these people are in fight or flight, and they make a poor decision. They make a decision to quit or go this way or that way. And I think you've put a good definition there. You're probably practicing anyway if you've taken notice of your breath. What about what you're doing and taking people into the outdoors? That was intriguing, because again, back in my day, that was in New Zealand, outdoor pursuits, and the Sir Edmund Hillary Outdoor Recreation Centre, not a former soldier with his own 5 acres. Talk to us about that.
Well, I really just love the ability to go out with people and go out spending time in the bush again, and hiking tracks, and just doing the classic, set up a bivvy and a small tent, and go out hunting, or just go out to take photos or do whatever. There were so many skills there that I remember not long after I got out of the army, a friend of mine was like, oh, you'd be really good at lighting campfires, eh? You would have done lots in the army. I was like, I never did any campfires.
I never lit a campfire in my life.
No way. It was all all that whole light discipline, and using headlamps if you need to, red lamps and all that kind of thing. But the actual skills of showing to people how to actually go out in the bush and stay safe as well, and take the gear that you need, and just take the, sure, we've all got, when you've had a night out in the cold, and you've been absolutely saturated and frozen and wet because that was your job, it's like you get quite good at mentally managing that, but also being able to prepare for it. And a lot of the skills there were ones that I was quite surprised weren't commonly taught in other places. So one of the things that we teach with our fieldcraft courses is just land navigation. Like the classic, join the army and go through the different navigation packages of how to use a map and compass and terrain recognition and night navigation. And then you're out there doing it, walking around at night with night vision, and you go and, any season, weather or terrain, and your proficiency of navigation skill, it's a transferable skill. And it's one that a lot of hunters and just people who want to go out and just go way out in the backcountry and go off the beaten track and explore, just to have that confidence as well of knowing that the GPS, they do fail, and being able to navigate the land and get really good at reading maps and terrain features. There's a lot of useful skills there in taking people on these cross-country walks, where moving between, waypoints, and they're going to plan out and plot out their route and follow the map around the whole time. We can do all kinds of different activities out there, and it's a good one to, simulate a little bit of external pressure as well. Someone's leading the patrol and navigating everyone. It's all, good team exercise, and especially to do with how to prepare people for what happens if things go wrong. And you hear about people going out in the hills with no first aid kit, no maps, no nothing like that. And to think, well, you can facilitate some good training and just show people, like, here's the basic equipment we need to go and take a few people out, and we can go set up a bivvy and build an actual shelter out of wood and branches and sticks, and build the whole campfire, stove, cooking areas that cook as a team. And really just have a moment for people to be able to get out of town and get out of the city and just go and camp out in the bush for a few days, because it's good for you, and it's nice and it's quiet, and you can be out there and be very comfortable.
So again, just painting the picture as I try to do, how far out in which major city are you away from?
So I'm 2.5 hours from Christchurch. So Fairlie's 2.5 hours from Christchurch. Lake Tekapo is 30 minutes away, and the nearest city's Timaru. Timaru's out on the coast, on the east coast. That's about 50 minutes. Yeah. So we're close to a lot of really cool stuff around here.
Yeah, so fairly accessible. Brilliant. Yeah, it's funny what you say about fires. I was just exactly the same. I went camping with the family. They go, "Can we have a fire?" I was like, A, I was going, no. And B, how would I do that? C, is that even legal here in Australia? We'll burn the whole place down. But I got on YouTube a couple months ago, and I think I don't know how it popped up, but it was how to start a fire with wet wood. And these guys are amazing at what they do. And it's not the old pyramid stacking or teepee stacking that I thought. But yeah, it's funny what people think we learn in the army versus what we actually learn. But what we do learn in the military is how to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. Yep. You spoke about that a little bit, and backups and backup plans and what ifs. I don't think civilians think like that.
No, I agree. Yeah, and it's or that civilians don't think like that because they don't have to. There's not when we're overseas or preparing for missions, that there's a factor that there are people actively looking to hurt you and actively going to exploit you, and there are tactics in place, and there are a lot of transferable skills and things there for people to say, in the military, we are really good at thinking of the worst case scenario, right? The worst case, absolute most dangerous course of action, sorry. And I just thought at a point, why not think of and invest more of my time and energy into what's the best possible situation and outcome that could happen, and just started to apply that framework to it, and timelines, and just working on actionable steps, and friendly forces, a lot of friendly forces out there. Yeah.
Just going back to what you do, and then I wanted to move on to some of the people you're working with, and maybe the role of nutrition and physical exercise. With cold water therapy, with the breath work and so on, I've interviewed a few people, and they say biology creates psychology. And you said, sometimes you've gone down to that river and you're in the worst possible state. Now that's a state. That's not you. That's not Ryan is a depressed guy for the rest of his life. And you stated 10 minutes in the water. In 10 minutes, you changed your psychology. You changed your state. So would you agree with that? What are your thoughts on that statement that your biology creates your psychology?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I've come back to practicing all of these skills, from breath work of just sit down meditation and stretching out in yoga, to going down to the river. For that is kind of the next step. And yeah, that it's been one where I just looked at it as far as like what's actually practically happening in real time when you're going through these breathing periods, or sitting in that cold water, and you are in a state where your brain waves have changed. Especially as soon as you close your eyes, your brain waves are no longer scanning in alpha because your eyes aren't open. You've got a completely different stimulus. So you're creating a chemical change within your body. You are getting more blood flow to your brain. You've got more the ventricular pump, which pumps your spinal fluid up and down your spine, up into your cerebral chamber and over the, it ejaculates onto your pineal gland. As soon as I learned that, I was like, what? Pineal gland, which creates the lucid dream DMT type experience, which can happen, like psychedelic breath work. And I have had some real doozy sessions of really just being able to energetically release some trauma and really have that kind of moment. And that's been through careful facilitation, but learn that whole process of you're creating change at so many deeper levels from within your brain, not just within your brain but your heart as well. And being able to be energized and full of it, and you're able to actually just have that data dump you need to have. And a lot of times that's been some crying, and that's been some just forgiveness as well, forgiving people, forgiving myself for something, and just having that time to reflect on it and be like, okay, I'm glad I had that. So
that's interesting. I've got a little bit to unpack there when you talked about the pineal gland.
Of course. Yeah.
His show's dropping soon, but really interesting cat. If you look up on Insta, The Heathen Machine, Matt Hayes, really name. Interesting. He was a Marine in United States, cool. But he spoke about psilocybin. He's pretty clever on it. Yeah. But he had a psilocybin experience, and from what I'm looking at now, research-wise, because you said releasing trauma, it literally seems to disassociate the trauma from the memory. Now you talked about literally using breath work and cold water therapy to stimulate that pineal gland as well. Is that, just so I'm clear, is that just through breath work and just through the cold water therapy?
So that locomotion of what's actually happening, that certainly is happening through just normal breathing. The depth of it and the intensity of it and the period, the volume of it. There's more to, I guess, in talking about psychedelic experiences and moments, we're releasing trauma, so emotion and energy and motion. So we're talking about, could be that memory, or that a moment where there's an entire amount of tension there, there's a whole lot of pain there, and when that has the ability to let go and let it fly, it's gone from being a memory. And this is what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about. And this is where I dove a lot into that, about how this actually is working, how it's a tangible process of when you're getting yourself into this physical state through meditation and through breath work and through your external stimulus and in your environment. That's when you can release at deeper levels in a way of you have that comfort to go into that really vulnerable state. And that's why breathwork facilitation is something I got into, and I facilitate for people and for groups as well, because I think it's just a matter of being there for someone and just being there to listen and just being there to guide them through it. And there's no expectations, and there's no you did it wrong or anything like that. It's just a moment to really let go. And it's been great to actually, once that energetic charge has been released from it, it's a memory and it's wisdom of, I don't cry when I think about this anymore, because I've just looked at it like, well, that had to happen, whatever that moment, or whatever that might be. And just that was, that's been my experience with it.
What an interesting place for a soldier, a warrior, to find himself in, is helping these people through that journey. That's an interesting purpose shift, an interesting identity shift, Ryan. Well,
there's a part there that I was also in reconnaissance platoon for a couple of years, and that was at one of those places of like, and really thinking about the role of it, and for my own purpose, it aligned of, I still want to go and find a way to get somewhere. Our motto was find a way or make one. And that's something I really took on, of like, if I can do it, anyone else can do it. And to think, well, if I can show someone else the way to get in there, go forward into their own objectives and do their own things. Cool. And I found myself especially when I went up and started doing some things like breathwork retreats with the New Zealand Breathwork Association, which I didn't know was a thing until I went and looked for it. But going in some very out of it experience, like going from a soldier, infantry soldier in battalion, Afghanistan, all this, to sitting in a breathwork retreat in the Coromandel in a full 4-day vegan retreat, holding hands around the giant crystal in the morning. And to think there was nothing nefarious, it was all just love, and it was all just people holding spaces to be able to teach different breath work, and a whole route for myself I realized, which was activating the rest and digest system. Really, I looked at it like to be able to feel comfortable and have my whole body in a state where everything's just feeling really good, and to take extrapolate from that whole learning experience and say, well, yeah, I learned a lot there, and a lot of things that I just take pieces of and just add in, and just really try and make it practical for other people.
I guess that segues into your collaboration with our fellow, a friend of ours, Dion Jensen, with the Lion Academy. He talks so often about our happy place as soldiers, as cops, whatever, is to default to fight and flight. We're really good at that. And I know for a fact, after interviewing some really interesting guests, that if it doesn't happen, we might create that. We might start a fight. And for the listeners, that doesn't mean go and punch someone in the head. It could be having an argument with your partner, and then, well, that's comfortable, I'll just crank that up a bit more and more, or a stranger, or whatever it is, or yourself, even worse.
Yeah.
But for you to have those 4 days and literally in that parasympathetic nervous system activation, Dion talks about that. So how did you guys sort of connect, and where are you guys going there? Because I think you presented for him once.
Yeah. Well, I connected with Dion a couple of years ago, back in 2020, I think. And he just reached out and said, hey, I see what you're doing, and it's really cool. And if you ever need a hand with anything, we had a few calls, and recently and over the years just kept in touch. But we've we connected because he saw what I was doing and looking at the breathwork, cold water therapy, and the outdoor training, and all that in my place here at Kiwi Lions in the retreat area there, of no one else is really providing this kind of experience of I'm an ex-soldier. I've been a soldier for 15 years, and I've done a whole lot of other things as well. And I like to think that we can work together. And Dion's ex-military, and he's spent a lot of time in the police. He spends a lot of time working with youth groups and doing a lot of things. Just a really giving guy with a lot of energy. And to meet him a couple months back, went and delivered a speech. I delivered a speech at the Templeton RSA in Christchurch here, and then took Dion for a cold water therapy session out at Lake Tekapo, and he was really just considering how cold that is, and how it's going to be a huge energetic experience, and to think this is really good. This is what I love doing, is going out with people, especially who there's a big challenge there, and to go into it and just be present and just be spend some time with him, and to see that he's got an enormous heart, and a lot of things of just actioning projects, and helping a lot of veterans and a lot of people out as well with, hey, do you have a business? Like it's only a really good thing for yourself to be able to advertise and speak about what you're up to. And if you have an ambition, if you want to build something, you can learn it, and we can help you.
He's got a lot of wisdom. Yes, he's great on the business side. He's literally got that snapped up. He's got his systems and business side, and if you want to plug into that, I highly suggest a clever guy to use, a clever resource. But his wisdom and seeing and reading a situation, I guess it comes from policing, and especially the experience from, what was the it wasn't the TED talk that he did, was it? It was a Goldcast, was it?
Goldcast, yeah.
Goldcast, Google Goldcast, Dion Jensen, millions of views, but from being in those dark places, wobbly places, and getting out of it, that he's done. He can see when people are struggling, and most importantly, identify, okay, well, you're at this stage, these are the other stages you need to get to, and actually having the strength of character, of integrity, to actually be able to tell that person straight up, hey, you're here, mate, this is not right, this, you're hurting these people, you're hurting yourself or whatever, and you need to get to here. I can help you, or read this. I love the fact that his book, the good news about PTSD, is free. I gave it to a 67-year-old American female client of mine, and she's loving it. Some little guy from New Zealand.
Yeah, it's that's a really good thing too. Like to put it in the way that he's presenting a lot of this is, you've just had all of these experiences which have provided you with a whole lot of, an entire amount of knowledge there. That is the good news about it. And a lot of people disagree on what PTSD means and how to define it and what it is to do specifically and who's entitled to what and different things like that. But looking at it as far as, okay, how is this for a backstory? If I'm feeling, if I'm in a real low in my life now, how is this for a comeback? And how is this for, being prepared, of having through the worst experiences in my own life, and especially to do with the military and with police, and like I like that with what Dion Jensen's talking about with value, identity, and purpose. And just looking at that and thinking, what is my value? What is my identity? What is my purpose? Does that align with, one of the things I really had to explore and go into for myself when I left the army was, because my last name's Gilbert. So I was called Gilly my whole career. And when I got out of the army and started introducing myself as Ryan again, I was like, well, who's Ryan? And that was a real thing there of like, who am I going to be now? And what is my identity and purpose? I'm no longer a section commander or a, tracker or whatever. It's I'm civilian Ryan now. And it took a bit to really just, really just identify and really write it out. Like, what is my value, identity, and purpose? And actually write it down. Yeah.
It's a classic Kiwi thing to gloss over, but that's what most people, when they go through a change in circumstances, I don't know, a transition. For the military, it could be leaving that career path, but I think change in circumstances, transition, relates to anybody. You have to be honest with yourself. There's my identity here. Now what's next, and define it. And you writing it down, Ryan, is a great way of being honest with yourself there.
Yeah. And to write it out, like my own mission statement, my own orders, and my own planning of looking it out, like, this is what I want to achieve. It's a tangible things. And that time scale, that military time scale of planning of, achieving your objective, and then at the end of that time scale, you're back in the base and preparation for the next one. So looking at it as far on that reverse time scale of where I want to be, and from where I went to be to where I am now, of looking at it like when you're breaking it down into those steps, starting from end back to where you are, you'll find that there is an alarmingly short amount of steps, and they're all big ones, and they're all very simple. Like, especially if it's to build a business or build a home or have something like that, to think you can figure it out. And it takes some time, and if it's really worth your time, and you're really driven towards it, and you just cannot get it out of your mind, it's like that's what what your heart's actually trying to lead you in that direction.
Yeah, exactly. What's the direction for Forge? It's 2022. Where do you see it going over the next? Well, how long is it going to last? Where do you see yourself going, and how are you going to get there?
Well, I'm building this and building Kiwi lines here in my place. I want it to be, I want to teach skills, and I want to educate people, and to create something where I've got, where if I keel over and die for whatever reason, that it will keep going. And so that's of course working with other people. It's also just getting really clear on what I want to achieve and how I'm going to achieve it as well. And so the plan over the years is to really just keep using the space and really getting out there and engaging with people who want to do this and want to go down these, try some of these things out, especially breath work and cold water therapy and venture training, as well as just learning about leadership and ways to just really plan and strategize. And I work with a few other organizations like Halo Training and a few other ones around the country where just passing the knowledge on, and I want to be able to build that out and just have the I want to employ and have instructors be able to come here and teach skills that are, I'm not an amazing hunter, but I would love to have hunters come through and actually teach people and show people the skills and just be able to facilitate and have the space for that. Because there's a lot of great skills there and a lot of really amazingly skilled people that have come out of our military and police and fire service and ambulance services who have all this knowledge. And I just love a place for that to be able to just to share that to people and have courses and really have some really good events. And I'd like to think that could continue without me because there's a really good purpose there, and it's something where it's all the practicality of it.
Yeah, it's definitely helping others. All those, it was almost throwaway words like or terms like paying it forward and so on. But when I interviewed Ollie Ollerton, he stated, sometimes the best way to help yourself out of a hole is to start helping someone else.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of different things there. Altruism, you're probably familiar with flow states in the brain.
Yeah.
And flow state is when all those chemicals kick off, how you feel amazing, like when you come out of the water. Altruism, doing dangerous things, and creativity are the three main triggers out of 7. Yeah. So literally you built your place, Ryan. You're creating your business, and you're being altruistic by helping other people. That's literally all those beautiful flow state triggers that are gonna keep your brain on that path forwards.
Yeah, it was something I started to notice. The more I did those things, was where I found myself just at ease more, and I'm not so much worried about what could go wrong, and going into things like I'm the president of the RSA, the Mackenzie District RSA, and in just my engagements with other veterans and with the public and things like that, there's just going and helping someone out. It's and actually, if you've got a mate who's hurting, who's not doing well, might not be coping, get in your car and go see him, or give him and just go and do, if you got to run a Casevac for your mate, go do it. And it's a thing to just be able to do that for people, and just to think, well, I have the freedom to do that. And that's, to me, I think, that's how you build a really strong family and a really strong community. And pretty soon you're going to have that's some grassroots change. Yeah.
Now, we've been talking about military a lot, and it's becoming more well known about veteran transition and veteran mental health. And that's good, but we're a tiny part of the population. And I say that because you mentioned fire service, police, ambulance, and then we could look at nurses and doctors as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Defense Forces got a relatively single point of contact, I'd assume, in New Zealand. But do you see that being so diverse, but them all having the same need? I highly suggest they do. Maybe something in the future is to conglomerate that. I mean, emergency services is a gross term to lump in police, fire, and ambulance. But as you're talking, I'm thinking there's probably a need for that one place of support, that one point of contact to go, well, I'm part of this umbrella. That's the place you go to, and that place has all the ideas about what I can do if I want to go to FORGE, or if I want to go to Lion Academy, or if I want to go to outdoor pursuits, or a business leadership course or whatever. Just literally thinking on the fly here, maybe that might be an interesting place to go to, because there's a lot more a lot of those other people out there that are not just defense.
That's right. Yeah, mate. And I'd met a cop a couple of weeks ago, an ex-cop who on with a group called Pilgrim Bandits, who's I think they're originally from the UK. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they have a Christchurch group here, and they have some. I went out with a trip on them with myself and another member of our RSA. Go gold panning out on the West Coast, and it was a really cool environment to just be around but to hear some different stories as well. And as far as that central point where you can go to be referred for different things, that doesn't exist here. And that's been alarming to find out for myself. And as the president of the RSA, I like to think, I want to contribute to actually doing something about that. And it's just noticing that there are within the veteran community and between, Veterans Affairs, the RSA, No Duff, and all these, everyone else that's, just pitching in to help others and help the community and help veterans. I think it's for myself looking at it, this is exactly the kind of thing that I want to create, and I'm going to work on with the RSA and different groups to say, hey, we've got, if our first priority isn't looking after veterans who are injured, who are going through, it could be someone who was in the Air Force for 5 minutes or someone who was in the Army for 50 years potentially, and to think, hey, we should be, there are so many things we can do out there. A lot of the guys and a lot of guys I know who spend time in special forces and guys who've been through a lot of different experiences getting into equine therapy. Yeah. There's so many cool things you can go out and do, and why not connect all these services and make it a thing where, and like this, like what we're doing, like talking about our experiences as well, to think it is part of our history for our country and for our military and our friends that have passed away. I think that's a great way to remember them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that's a need. There's a couple of things that spurred my thoughts there on it. One is Breakpoint in the UK does that, putting through challenges that they can come out the other side and start to get a sense of purpose and a sense of getting a bit of their identity back. But the other is literally thinking about transition for, say, a firefighter, transition for a police officer. Yeah. It's the same thing, but we don't ever consider, we go, oh, well, the veterans are transitioning. These people are doing the same thing. And I think it's something we need to look at everybody in those spaces. Because if anything, it's that loss of identity that causes it, not just because you left the army. I was literally, as you know, I was just chatting with, he's got the most interesting name ever, Marcus Aurelius Anderson.
That's a good name.
Yeah. And he was 39 years old, getting ready to deploy to Afghan in the US Army, and paraplegic. Oh. Loss of identity. But same thing when you're leaving, the ambulance service, that's a loss of identity. You're not getting to do that anymore. So it'd be really interesting where you end up, Ryan. I'm glad that I'm glad that it's on your radar as well, and it only helps other people, and by default helps the business as well. So I guess just to finish off with that last question is, you're looking to get instructors in, you're looking to obviously grow FHORGE. I'm really excited to see where that ends up, and a positive step in mental health and wellness gets taken. Again, just relating back to another guest, Eric Miari's, we talk about mental health. We'd love it to be looked at, or mental wellness, whatever you want to call it. Same as physical. You got a sore hip, go see the physio. Oh, you're feeling a bit down, go see the psych. There's no difference. There's no stigma there. And I know, speaking to Widdermere Moffat, the Sergeant Major of the Army, that's changed a lot now, which is great. But it was just really nice to see that happen in all genres. The housewife, her cup's full. It's overflowing. And back in the 50s and 60s, what did they go through? A psychological breakdown. They go in the hospital for 3 weeks. Well, let's try and get on top of that. Everybody has those hard times, and to come out and visit a place like FHORGE would just be absolutely brilliant. I'm looking forward to coming there when I come back home. Absolutely, when you're over here. And it's been really great to just work with different groups and work with businesses and work with other training establishments and outfits, and just meet all these different people. And I like to think that people coming through here and going through and just spending time out here, that just adds to the place. And it's just something that it's especially out under the trees there, there's birds hopping around, and you can really get out there and just set up a tent for the night. We've got a bonfire out in the, a big brazier out in the bush, a kitchen out there, and a hut which I've named for
One of my mates, Rory Maloney, was killed in Afghan 10 years ago, 10 years ago this year. And just to have it as a space for people to be able to really come out. And every time, people come out, I just feel like the place is growing a lot too. So I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, mate, I'm proud of where you're at. It's great to be able to share your story and literally get Forge out there to a wider audience.
Thank you, man.
Ryan, look, we'll put all the details in there. We talked about forge.co.nz. Is there any other socials or any other places people need to go to access what you guys do?
Yeah, so I've got the Facebook page, Forge, and Instagram at Forge Training. And that's where, I'll just be posting a lot of the, especially just information about how-tos and videos and reels just of the swimming and of going through breathwork practices with groups and really just showcasing how to actually do it and just to pass and just transfer the knowledge as best as possible. Even if someone who doesn't ever turn up to one of my courses learns something from a post, cool. So, so it's just more to come too. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, man, you wouldn't believe the reach of the interwebs, as Pat Mack says.
The interwebs. Yep.
I'll get a message. I've been following you for 2 years. I never even heard from this person. Been following you for 2 years and doing that thing that you said. This time it changed my life.
Yep.
So as usual on these shows, if one thing one of us says can help one person, I think we've done our job.
Absolutely. Yeah. To me, that's what it's about. Someone learns that
Awesome.
one thing to change it. Yeah, mate.
Exactly. Look, Ryan, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on the show. I'll let pause. We'll have a chat. But look, if you're listening, jump on the show notes, check everything out there. And it's been an absolute honor having you on.
No, thank you, Damon. Real honor. Cheers, mate.